The Warren were the most feared species in the galaxy, their reputation spanning countless star systems. The mere mention of their name was enough to send shivers down the spines of even the bravest warriors. Known for their brutal conquests and relentless destruction, the Warren left nothing behind but devastated worlds and the echoes of their terrifying presence. For centuries, they had wiped out civilizations, extinguished entire species, and reshaped planets in their own ruthless image. Their philosophy was simple: only the strong deserved to survive, while the weak were nothing more than fuel for their war machine. When the Warren set their sights on the peaceful world of Kinner, panic spread across the galaxy. Kinner was a beacon of harmony and progress, a planet where technology was used to enhance life rather than dominate it. Its people had no enemies, no weapons of mass destruction, and had never known the horrors of war. To the Warren, this was a sign of weakness, a world ripe for conquest, an easy target to crush beneath their might. The invasion began with brilliant flashes in the sky, as massive Warren warships descended from the void. The ground trembled under the force of their arrival, and soon, the invaders unleashed devastation upon the serene cities below. Explosions tore through the landscape, and thick smoke blackened the sky. The people of Kinner, unprepared for such an assault, had no means of defense. Their leaders desperately attempted to send a distress signal to the Galactic Council, but it was too late. The Warren had already silenced their communications. Then, something unexpected occurred. A broken transmission was intercepted by Galactic leaders, not a plea for help, but something else entirely. The message was brief yet clear: an unknown fleet is approaching. They are coming to stop the terror. Confusion spread through the Galactic leadership. Who was this mysterious fleet? No known power in the galaxy could challenge the might of the Warren. Not until now. The Warren, confident in their supremacy, dismissed the threat as insignificant. General Varric, a towering figure known for his cold, calculating nature, scoffed at the idea that anyone could stand against his fleet. "They think they can challenge us," he growled in his native tongue, his deep voice sending chills through his officers. "Prepare for their arrival. We will show them the true meaning of terror." But the Warren had no idea what they were about to face. The unknown fleet arrived without warning, emerging from the depths of space like shadows slipping through the dark. At first, the Warren struggled to make out their forms. These ships were unlike anything they had encountered before. Smaller and sleeker, their energy signatures were entirely foreign. When the Warren attempted to scan them, their sensors failed. The ships seemed to flicker, as though shifting between dimensions, impossible to lock onto. Frustration gnawed at General Varric. "What trickery is this?" he muttered, fists clenched. Before he could find an answer, the unknown fleet struck. Their weapons were unlike anything the Warren had faced: fast, precise, and devastatingly effective. Rather than unleashing city-destroying firepower, these weapons targeted specific weak points in Warren warships with calculated precision. Shields failed, hulls ruptured, and entire vessels were disabled before they could even return fire. The Warren's once indomitable fleet was suddenly vulnerable. "Impossible," one of Varric's officers whispered in horror. "They are stronger than we thought." For the first time in their long history of conquest, the Warren felt something new: fear. The unknown fleet advanced relentlessly. They were not intimidated, nor were they backing down. The Warren's initial arrogance faded, replaced by a growing unease. They had crushed countless civilizations before, but these adversaries were different. They did not fight like the others. They fought with precision, purpose, and tactics that the Warren had no time to counter. Determined to turn the tide, Varric barked an order: "Deploy the war machines. We will show them true terror." But just as the command was issued, a transmission interrupted their network. It had somehow bypassed their security systems. A voice, steady and commanding, echoed through the bridge. "This is the fleet of humanity. Your reign of terror ends here. Leave this planet, or face the full might of our forces." A stunned silence filled the command center. No species had ever dared to speak to the Warren this way. The sheer audacity of the message was shocking, but more than that, it carried a weight that could not be ignored. Humanity had power the Warren could not understand, and they had come not to plead, but to fight. Aboard the lead human warship, Captain Jane Talia stood firm, her eyes fixed on the holographic map displaying the battlefield. Her plan was working, but she knew the Warren would not surrender easily. They were a race bred for war, and they would fight to the last breath. "We need to end this," she said, turning to her officers. "Prepare phase 2. No mercy." As the battle raged on, the Warren scrambled to adapt. Their war machines, massive mechanical monstrosities designed to bring destruction to any world, were unleashed. But even as they prepared to retaliate, one thing had become painfully clear. The Warren had ruled through fear. But now, for the first time, they were the ones afraid. And humanity was just getting started. The Aarons had gravely underestimated human resolve. The human fleet was prepared for this kind of attack, and with each passing second, the Aarons realized they had walked into a trap from which there was no escape. The battlefield became a symphony of destruction, each side testing the other's strength. But it quickly became clear, this was no ordinary conflict. The Larians had awakened something in humanity they never could have foreseen. The fire that humanity brought to this war was not just the fire of weapons, it was the fire of survival, of unity, of something far stronger than raw power alone. Captain Talia's voice rang out once more, calm and commanding. "Phase 2 is a go. Let's show them what humanity can do." The Larian war machines, massive mechanical behemoths built for destruction, spread across the battlefield like a storm, each one capable of leveling cities with a single strike. The Aarons believed no force in the galaxy could stand against them. But they had made a fatal miscalculation. The humans weren't just fighting back, they were fighting smarter. With every passing moment, their presence on the battlefield became more terrifying. General Ver paced restlessly on his command deck, his gaze locked onto the displays as his fleet crumbled under the relentless precision strikes from the human forces. The tactics being used against them were unlike anything he had ever encountered, no chaos, no desperation. The humans were organized, calculating, and methodical. "Commander," a nervous officer spoke up, "our reinforcements have been delayed. The tactical fleet is still out of position." Ver clenched his teeth. "This isn't a battle anymore," he muttered. "It's an execution. They're systematically dismantling us. We need to turn this around." But it was too late. The human fleet was already closing in, giving the Aarons no opportunity to recover. On the other side of the battlefield, aboard the flagship Indomitable, Captain Jane Talia stood at the heart of humanity's command. Her eyes scanned the holographic map, watching the precise movements of the Aaron war machines. She was not just in command, she was leading this battle with ruthless efficiency. "Phase 3 is ready," Lieutenant Harris reported, his voice steady but urgent. "We've locked onto their command vessel. It's now or never." Talia nodded. "Launch the assault. Make it count." The human fleet shifted into position, and the space around the Aaron ships darkened with the encroaching swarm of warships. What the Aarons didn't realize was that humanity had prepared for this moment from the very beginning. The true strength of the human fleet wasn't just in their weaponry, it was in their strategy, their ingenuity, and their unyielding will to survive. With a deepening roar, the human fleet unleashed its assault. A barrage of energy blasts illuminated the darkness of space, tearing through Aaron war machines with surgical precision. The Aarons attempted to retaliate, but they were too slow. Humanity's shield technology proved superior, and their weapons cut through Aaron armor like a hot knife through butter. The Larians deployed their war machines in desperation, but humanity had anticipated this as well. Using sophisticated EMP devices, the human fleet disabled the Aaron machines, rendering them vulnerable to the full force of humanity's firepower. The battle raged on, but what was once an unstoppable Aaron fleet was now a mere shadow of its former might. General Ver stood frozen at his command console, his fists clenched in frustration. His species had conquered entire civilizations, how could they be losing? "How is this possible?" he growled, his voice barely audible over the chaos. A hesitant officer responded, "They've adapted. They're unlike anything we've encountered before. We can't outfight them. We may not survive this. A flicker of doubt crossed Ver's mind, but he pushed it aside. The Aarons had dominated the galaxy for centuries. Surely, they could not fall to these upstart humans. Meanwhile, Captain Talia remained resolute. Her fleet had endured fierce retaliation, but the tide had turned decisively in their favor. Now, one final task remained, crushing the Aaron command and ending their reign of terror once and for all. Prepare for the final strike, she ordered. Take down their command ship. Understood, Captain, Lieutenant Harris responded. The crew moved with practiced precision, executing every command flawlessly. The Larians, now desperate, threw everything they had at the human fleet. But it was clear, their forces were collapsing. The humans had outmaneuvered and outgunned them at every turn. Every Aaron ship that fell was another nail in the coffin of their empire. The massive Aaron flagship Valor, the heart of their fleet, still loomed on the holographic map. Though battered and barely holding together, it remained standing. Its command center was in disarray, and Ver had lost contact with half of his fleet. His soldiers were beginning to retreat. This is it, Talia murmured. The time for tactics was over. Now, they would strike at the heart of the enemy. Launch the assault. The human fleet moved in perfect formation, closing in on the Valor. With pinpoint precision, they targeted its main engines, disabling it in a series of violent, explosive strikes. The mighty flagship lurched, struggling to maintain control, but the battle was already lost. The once feared Aaron fleet was collapsing before their eyes. General Ver's hands trembled as he slammed his fist onto the console. No, this cannot be happening. His officers scrambled in panic, but it was clear, he had lost control. The once mighty Aarons were on the verge of total defeat. Captain Talia watched in silence as the final blow was delivered. The last salvo of human firepower tore through the Valor, and the flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion. Leaderless and disoriented, the remaining Aaron ships turned and fled, their morale shattered. It was over. As the battlefield fell silent, the human fleet stood victorious. The terror that had once plagued the galaxy was now nothing more than a fading memory. The Aarons had learned a brutal lesson: humanity was not to be underestimated. The crew of the Indomitable erupted in cheers, celebrating their triumph. But Talia remained solemn. She gazed out into the darkness of space, knowing that this was only one chapter in a much larger war. The Aarons had made the mistake of underestimating humanity, but they wouldn't be the last. As the human fleet prepared for the long journey home, a new sense of pride and purpose filled the air. Humanity had faced its greatest test and emerged victorious. But as they reveled in their hard-won triumph, an ominous transmission reached the Indomitable. A cryptic series of coordinates, no message, no explanation. Talia gathered her senior officers. We need to investigate this. It could be nothing, or it could be another force watching us, waiting. We can't afford to ignore it. Lieutenant Harris frowned. And if it's a trap? Talia's gaze was unwavering. Then we'll deal with it. But if it's something more, then it's time humanity made its presence known. The fleet set course toward the unknown, prepared for whatever came next. Captain Talia and her crew couldn't shake the feeling that they stood on the edge of something far greater. The Warians had been a formidable threat, but they were only one faction in a vast and unpredictable galaxy. The real question now was whether humanity was truly prepared for what lurked beyond the known stars. Talia gazed out of the viewport, her mind racing with possibilities. Humanity had proven its resilience in battle, its ability to endure, but was that enough? The galaxy was teeming with both wonders and horrors, and humanity had just carved its first mark into the cosmic landscape. As the fleet drew closer to the mysterious coordinates, an eerie calm settled over the crew. No one knew what lay ahead, but one truth was certain: this was no longer just about survival. Humanity had stepped onto the stage of galactic power, and the universe would never be the same. But as the stars stretched out before them, a gnawing unease clung to Talia's thoughts. The Warians were no longer their greatest concern. Something far older and far darker loomed on the horizon. The Indomitable and its fleet emerged from FTL into a region so remote that no star chart had ever documented it. The stars here burned dim, their light swallowed by the vast emptiness of uncharted space. As the ships maneuvered into position, tension coiled around the crew like an unseen force. "Captain," Lieutenant Harris's voice crackled through the intercom, "we're picking up a signal. It's weak, but it's there." Talia's pulse quickened. "Source?" Harris hesitated. "A large object ahead. But, it's not like anything we've seen before. It doesn't match any known structure." A cold shiver crawled up Talia's spine. Was this a threat? A relic of a long-forgotten civilization? Or something worse, lurking in the shadows, waiting? "We're moving in," she ordered. "Stay sharp. We have no idea what we're dealing with." The fleet advanced, and the silhouette of a massive structure emerged from the void. It was unlike anything they had encountered before, a colossal, triangular construct, its jagged edges gleaming faintly under the distant starlight. An eerie glow pulsed from its core, casting ghostly patterns across its ancient, cracked surface. Strange markings adorned its hull, symbols whose meaning had been lost to time. It appeared dormant, yet something about it felt profoundly wrong. Could it be a weapon? Harris asked, unease tightening his voice. Talia studied the structure with narrowed eyes. "Whatever it is, it's beyond our understanding. Let's proceed carefully." As the fleet closed the distance, a sudden pulse of energy erupted from the structure. It swept through the fleet like a shockwave, sending alarms blaring and rattling the ships. The crew was thrown from their stations as the vessels lurched violently. "Brace for impact," Talia shouted, gripping the console as the ships were dragged toward the looming structure. It was as if an unseen force had seized them, reeling them into the heart of the monolith. The ships shuddered as they passed through an invisible barrier, and then, abruptly, everything went silent. "We're trapped," Harris breathed, his voice edged with disbelief. "We've entered something. A different space. The stars, they're gone." The crew exchanged uneasy glances as the realization set in. They were no longer in the galaxy they knew. They had crossed some invisible threshold into a realm where the rules of physics no longer applied. "We need to find a way out of here," Talia said, pushing down the dread threatening to consume her. "Open communications with the fleet. Let's see if anyone has answers." As the team scrambled to establish contact, the structure's eerie glow intensified. Shadows danced along the Indomitable's hull, twisting unnaturally. Then, without warning, a voice reverberated through the ship, not through the comms, but directly into their minds. "You are not welcome here." The crew stiffened. The voice was ancient, filled with malice and a presence so immense it sent a chill through their bones. The very air seemed to vibrate with its power. "What the hell was that?" Harris whispered, his face pale. Talia exhaled slowly. "I don't know. But it sounds like we just woke something up." The glow from the monolith surged brighter, the oppressive energy thickening around them. The Indomitable groaned as if being crushed by an unseen force. "You have trespassed on sacred ground. You will suffer for your arrogance." Without warning, massive tendrils of energy lashed out from the structure, coiling around the fleet's ships like serpents. Metal groaned under their constriction as the crew fought to maintain control. Every attempt to break free was met with resistance, the force holding them was far beyond anything they had encountered before. "We can't fight this," Harris shouted. "We need another way." Talia gritted her teeth, scanning the readouts. "Then we find one. We need to understand what this force is, what it wants." But the voice cut through her thoughts once more, this time dripping with scorn. "You are not worthy of our mercy. We have watched your kind for eons. Now, you will suffer the consequences." The tendrils tightened. The fleet groaned under the strain. The entire ship shuddered as if reality itself was breaking apart. Talia turned to her crew, her expression set with determination. "Listen up. We've survived against impossible odds before, we are not giving up now. Find a weakness, anything we can use to break free. Her words reignited the fire in her crew. They scrambled into action, their fear pushed aside by sheer will. But deep down, Talia knew the truth. This was no ordinary battle. This was a fight against something ancient, something that defied all logic. A thought struck her like lightning. She turned sharply to Harris. The artifact we recovered earlier, could it be connected to this? His eyes widened. The energy readings, they match. If that artifact is acting as an anchor, then it's holding us here. Talia clenched her fists. Then we destroy it. But as the crew scrambled to locate the artifact, the voice boomed once more, its anger reverberating through their very bones. You cannot escape. We control everything here. Your ships, your weapons, they are nothing. Talia's jaw tightened. No. We're humans. And we're not just ants beneath your heel. For a moment, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. Then, the battle for survival truly began. If they could sever its connection to the enemy fleet, they might just stand a chance. We're going to do this, Talia muttered under her breath. The crew worked with desperate urgency, their every movement fueled by determination. Meanwhile, the tendrils constricted even tighter, crushing their ships with relentless force. The walls of the Indomitable groaned under the immense pressure, until a new sound cut through the chaos. A deep, resonant hum reverberated through the structure, as if something ancient and powerful had begun to awaken. They had found the artifact. Harris and his team pushed forward, fighting against the forces trying to keep them at bay. When they finally reached the artifact's core, Tella's heart pounded in his chest. The massive crystalline structure before them pulsed with an eerie, otherworldly energy. Its surface shimmered, warping the very air around it. Talia stepped forward, her resolve unshaken. Destroying the artifact was their only hope. Fire everything we've got at it, she commanded. The crew unleashed a relentless barrage, their weapons striking with pinpoint accuracy. Cracks spiderwebbed across the glowing crystal, but it held. Then, the entity's voice boomed once more, now filled with rage. Foolish humans. You cannot destroy what has existed for eons. You cannot comprehend the power we wield. Talia refused to waver. We've survived against impossible odds before. We've outlasted every force that tried to break us. We'll outlast you too. With one final, concentrated attack, the crew unleashed their most powerful weapons. The artifact shattered in a deafening explosion, sending shockwaves rippling through the ancient structure. Silence fell. The ships hung motionless, suspended in the void. Then, slowly, the massive tendrils began to retract. The structure trembled violently, as if something within it was dying. The energy field dissipated, and the gravitational pull eased, freeing the fleet. Talia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. They had done it. But just as she thought they were safe, the ancient voice echoed once more, this time tinged with something close to fear. You may have won this battle, humans, but you have only scratched the surface. The true power of the universe is yet to be revealed. And we will not forget your trespass. Then, silence. The artifact lay lifeless, its once glowing form reduced to fractured remnants. Talia gazed out at the remnants of the ancient structure, a newfound fire in her eyes. The galaxy had long believed it understood fear. But now, they knew the truth. Humanity had stared into the abyss, faced the unknowable, and survived. Leighton, get us out of here, Talia ordered, her voice steady. The fleet turned away from the dying structure, beginning their journey back to the galaxy they called home. They had conquered the shadows of the unknown, proving their resilience. This battle was over, but the war for survival, for understanding, for dominance, was far from finished. Humanity had staked its claim among the stars. And no force, no matter how ancient or powerful, would ever question their place again.